Hello guys, Admiral Prince Eric and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be discussed about the showcasing for top tier ships, defense and Essex. Before I headed to start on, so please make sure you have to subscribe and click the bell notification icon. So will I posting for some World of Warships content for many of this regardless about. So let's get started about this. Okay, so the first one is the top tier British large cruiser defense. Well, it is a short about defense though. It's a hypothetical one in the 1930s. Designed, designed as a big cruiser that was simply ship layout inspiration of the Nelson class battleship. With the possibility of the ship displacement consists about 40,000 or 50,000 tons whatsoever, but this ship was never supposed to be drawn out of the blueprints. But be careful though, because on history was that the Washington Naval Treaty and London Naval Treaty, because of these two treaties, that was limited for the ship's tonnage displacement. Okay, so in the game we're talking about defense is what we so-called Mini Nelson. Mini Nelson is going to be armed 356mm guns in 3x2 turrets. With the absence of the rear turrets on the back. So let's get started some specification for the stat. The survivability consists 60,100 HP. With the torpedo protection is about 90%. Main batteries consist 356mm 45 Mark 7 or Mark II mounts. These are the same armaments was used for King George V. Secondary barrels consist 133mm 50 QF Mark 1. You can only for use that in King George V battleship. The main battery fighting range is about 18.3 kilometers and that was used in battle cruiser dispersion. You can always switch ammunition shells like HE or AP shells, whatever disregards for what's on the opportunity. The main battery will be reload time is 15.8 seconds and has dispersion 148 meters. The HE shell damage is 6,100. The fire chance will be 44%. The AP shells is going to be 10,500 damage. Their initial velocity is 757 meters per second. The secondary battery consists about the 6 seconds reload time. The maximum range is 7.7 kilometers. Maximum damage is 1,900 and the initial velocity is 792 meters per second. Okay, so the torpedoes are gonna feature in this defense is going to be 622mm PR Mark IV. It consists 2x4. It's located on submerged hull, in which can capable of torpedo turning. The torpedo about range is 10 kilometers, damage 21,067. Torpedo speed is 67 knots. Detectability range is 1.7 kilometers. Easily for the nav is going to be defense is a knife to knife combat. And just like the British battle cruisers on the Tet 3. The airstrikes consist depth charge airstrike, Hadley Page Halifax GR, 2 attack flights. They can deploy anti-submarine bombs. The bombs' payloads consist only 2. The bomb damage is about 4,900. The air defenses consist 14mm 56 OQF Mark 1/2 on the Mark IV mounts, 6x2 14mm, 14mm 56 OQF Mark 9 on the Mark 6 mount, 8x6 consistently. Next one is the secondary armament was used for it. The continuous damage is about 375. Damage by shell explosions 1,610. Priority sector reinforcement 50%. Fighting range is about 5.2 kilometers. Okay, so maneuverability consists, the top speed is about 34.7 knots, turning circle radius is about 770 meters, rudder shift time is 12.7 seconds. Last but not least is concealment, which the concealment range is about 14 kilometers range. With the upgrades and commander skills is about 10.1 kilometers. Can be a large cruiser though, can be stealthed easily. The detectability range by sea is about 10.1 kilometers. The air detectability is going to be 7.5 kilometers. Assured detectability range is about 2 kilometers. And detectability range by depth is about from 0 to 7.5 kilometers. Okay, so let's check out the armor layout. It consists of cruiser armor, but much like the Nelson class battleship armor layout, the armor belt is consists 13 millimeters. Side plating is same. The fore end and aft end will be 25 millimeters of armor. The ship's superstructure is about 16 millimeters. The conning tower is about 229 millimeters. So let's check out the Citadel armor, what it looks like. Here's gonna be the Citadel armor. Its armor deck slopes about 127 millimeters. The armor belt is 229 millimeters. They can penetrate a high caliber from ships in regardless about that. Torpedo bulkhead is about 45 millimeters of armor. So basically, you look like a Nelson style. So basically, be careful for that. This ship though, it is a fragile. But what it seems to be likely I told about the strategy or the purpose. So be careful about that. This ship. So right about then, the defense is only available on Salvage for Victory back in the previous update. So I finally took on personally, which is going to be initially that I wanted to claim a Caballos for coal. Right now I'm pretty tried the Salvage for Victory at the time. So let's head on for the upgrades. Here are the here are the recommended upgrades for do so right now in this large cruiser. Slot 1 is the main armaments mod 1. Second slot, damage control mod 1. Third slot is going to be aiming systems mod 1. On the fourth slot, I always say, because of these focuses the frontal turrets, usually you're gonna need a prop mod 1. But same as usual, we're gonna need to do like Marseille. The fifth slot is concealment system mod 1. Last but not least, main battery mod 3 is very important for this ship. Here are some recommended signals, but also the fact nature about the defense is the only to be used repair party, but not to be used the specialized repair teams, like mostly for British cruisers and battleships in the tech tree. That's why hydroacoustic search is only available in this ship. Last but not least, short burst smoke generator, which can be found on British destroyers in the tech tree. Simply mention about that the premium ship in Tier 8, Nottingham. Here are gonna recommended commander skills, which is only to be helmed with the unique commander Andrew Cunningham. So the grease the gears, expert marksman, demolition expert, adrenaline rush, concealment expert, top creek gunner, superintendent, which is very important skill because you're gonna need additional charges for all consumables. For defense though, we are also need a survivability expert, which is going to be ship's increase of HP. So the the hit points of this large cruiser is 65,100. Now the lastly is the last stand. Or another one thing, gun feeder is expert loader is only recommended for this ship build. The ship skill is very important because switching the ammunition shells will be 15.8 seconds. So I might gonna need this expert loader. Or you want to protect the engines and other commodities, try to use the last stand. Okay, so that's it for now, but that's it for now about by showcasing the top tier British large cruiser defense. But I hope you can claim for defense in the another opportunity in salvage for victory for in the future. So accordingly, the salvage for victory to claim defense is supposed to be available for 1 year. Okay, so let's move on. Now, the top tier of the American aircraft carrier Essex. Okay, initially as a tier 9 US aircraft carrier in the Tech tree that was since back in 2019 though. Okay, the history of the Essex class aircraft carriers was began in the 1940s. It was laid down at every shipyards across the United States. One of the so far Essex is the one of the most legendary aircraft carrier of the US Navy during the Second World War in the battle against the Imperial Japanese Navy. So in real life Essex can be helmed on the squadrons consists the Curtiss SB-2C held dive bombers, the Volt F-4 Corsair attack aircraft, and the Grumman F-4F torpedo bombers. So Essex will be continued to service throughout the Second World War and in the Cold War era. So luckily for that, many of the Essex class aircraft carriers to be re-enter service in the 1950s until members of the Essex class aircraft carriers will be decommissioned throughout from 1960s to 1990s. Although 4 of which survived to be turned into a museum ship. Some of them is the USS Intrepid is located in New York City. USS Hornet, which is the name after the previous aircraft carrier that was sunk at the Battle of Santa Cruz Islands, is preserved as a museum ship in Los Angeles, California. The third one is the USS Yorktown, named after the previous ship that was lost during the Battle of Midway, and is also the name after the Siege of Yorktown. The ship is on location the museum ship in Patriots Point in South Carolina for the pay tribute the 200th anniversary of the US Navy. Last but not least is the USS Lexington CV-16 that I recognize for it. She has currently preserved as a museum ship located in Corpus Christi, Texas. The Lexington has been recommissioned throughout 1950s, but she continued throughout the service in the 1960s, served as a training ship until the last of the Essex class aircraft carrier is decommissioned and struck by naval vessel register in the 1990s. Okay, so we're finally done on the history of the Essex thus. So let's head on to the world of warships. So Essex initially as a tier 9 aircraft carrier that was recognized back since the game was launched in 2015 until initially the Essex as a tier 9 aircraft carrier that can launch fighters, torpedo bombers and dive bombers. But also for that, this ship can access defensive AFR consumable. Well, suddenly, 4 years later, Essex has been removed from the spot for a CV gameplay overhaul changes. Because the popularity in this Essex store was truly remembered about the World of Warships consistently based on this hiatus. So 5 years later, Essex begins its reside as a top tier. Now, with most of these changes that I will explain to this later on. So as a top tier aircraft carrier became as a top tier aircraft carrier of the US territory is going to be a support. Okay, so let's get started about the specifications on Essex class aircraft. I'm sorry, the Essex, the top tier. Survivability is 59,500. Torpedo protection is about 34%. The aircraft consisted the top tier planes. The torpedo bombers is going to be BTD destroyer. It consists 4 attack flights. The hit points is 2,700. Speed is about 134 knots. Maximum speed 170 knots. Size of the attacking flights consists only 2. The aircraft squadron is 8. The aircraft on deck is 16. So the torpedo bomber ornament is torpedo Mark 13 to Mark 2. The torpedoes and payload is going to be the 2. Torpedo damage is 6,433. The range is about 3.5 kilometers and army distance is 577 meters. That's why the attack aircraft is going to be a single squadron attack flight, the Grumman FAF Bearcat, which is featured from the top tier Midway. Although the hit points is about 1,873 per planes, 1,180 knots, maximum speed 221 knots. The the size of the attacking flight is going to be 6. Aircraft on deck is always 6. Aircraft per squadron is going to be 6. The attack aircraft main ornament is going to be tiny team rockets. This is one of the features of the top tier Midway. The rockets and payload is consists only 2. Rocket damage is about 5,400. Armor penetration capacity 68 millimeters. The chances of fire across the target is 34%. Next one is going to be the dive bombers. The Douglas TB2D Sky Pilot. It consists a single attack flight. Hit points is about 3,626. Speed is 133 knots. Maximum speed 169 knots. The size of the attacking flight is going to be 6. Aircraft per squadron is always the same. And aircraft carrier is always the same number. Now, the dive bomber main ornament is going to be AN M63 high explosive bombs. The bombs in payload is going to be a 4. Bomb damage 5,400. Armor penetration capacity is about 42 millimeters. Chances of cross fire on target is 33%, whether on its target to enemy ships. So the next one is the main battery. So the secondary batteries consist 127mm 38 Mark 12 or Mark 24 mount. It consists 4.1. The reload time is about 6 seconds. Range is about 5 kilometers. The damage is about 1,800. Initial velocity 792 meters per second. Chances of cross on fire is about 6%. And also the secondary barrel we got 127mm 38 Mark 12 on the Mark 32 mount. This was used, the secondary armament was used from Iowa class battleships. Reload time is about 6 seconds. Maximum range 5 kilometers. Maximum damage 1,800. The initial velocity is 792 meters per second. Armor penetration capacity is 21 millimeters. The airstrike is consists depth charge airstrike consolidated BB4Y2 privateer. It consists a single attack flight. Reload time is about 25 seconds. Bombs in payload is only a single one. Bomb damage is about 4,900. But in the aircraft carrier though, you can automatically to deploy a depth charge airstrikes against the incoming submarines from submerge. Now the AA defenses consist AA guns 20mm oil icon on the Mark 4 mounts, 56x1 20mm. Next, the 14mm 56 Bofors on the Mark 2 mounts, 17x4. The AA guns 127mm guns. You can also put that as a secondary battery, as well as the same thing as usual. usual for a secondary battery. Continuous damage is about 520 seats. Damage by shell explosions 1691. The priority sector reinforcement 35%. Fighting range is about 5.8 kilometers. Okay, the maneuverability is going to be the aircraft carrier is about 34.7 knots. Turning circle radius 1120 meters. Rudder shift time 30.9 seconds. Meaning the Essex is the fastest aircraft carrier. Light other than Midway Thor. Like the Midway Thor is going to be 33 knots. But the Essex is going to be the fastest aircraft carrier in the game. So the concealment is about detectability range by sea is 30.5 kilometers. The detectability range by depth from 0 to 10.7 kilometers. The air detectability is 10.7 kilometers. The assured detectability range is about 2 kilometers. So let's check out the armor layout. The armor layout consists of light to medium. The armor belt consists 102 millimeters. The 90 millimeters of armor belt, including the flight deck. The flight deck consists 30 millimeters. The island superstructure plating is 30 millimeters. The fore end and aft end will be 19 millimeters of armor. The deck consists 64 millimeters. So let's check on the interior, what we'll see up ahead. Here the Citadel armor consists 37 millimeters. Torpedo bulkhead 89 millimeters. So means the aircraft carrier has no Citadel armor, which can probably you won't be survived for that unless the aircraft carrier should be stay on the base. Okay, so let's check out my recommended upgrades to be followed. Okay, so Essex is going to be a support aircraft carrier rather than usually the Midway is going to be the tactical aircraft carrier. So the first slot, Air Groups Mod 1. Second slot, Aircraft Engines Mod 1. The third slot, you can only choose for that is only 3 options. The 3 options are going to be Torpedo Bombers Mod 1, Attack Aircraft Mod 1, or Air Torpedoes Mod 1. It's up to you for that in this recommendation. Now, ano yun? Dali. Now, the fourth slot is going to be, there are 3 recommendations wanted to focus on the torpedo bombers, attack aircrafts, and dive bombers. Now, for my recommended is going to be Torpedo Bombers Mod 2, which is going to be a recommended build. Because the Torpedo Bomber Squadron is always available. But the consumable is the repair. The rest of the remaining squadron are consist the tactical. Now, the next one is the Squadron Consumables Mod 1 is the most recommended upgrade. Like from German aircraft carriers. It's most importantly gonna need to do a repair, as well as the tactical squadrons is going to be a smoke curtain generator also to do this. Now, the 6th slot is going to be the focus on Air Groups Mod 2. So the torpedo bombers is going to be available for widely consumables and especially the repair. Now, one of the most featured up ahead in these support aircraft carriers of the US Tech Tree is going to be the smoke curtain generators, which is one of the feature back in the update 12.6 in the event concealed maneuvers. This consumable can deploy smoke from planes, usually on its designated target, or you have to provide support on our teammates can also for that. Plus also the Essex going to be used in combat air patrol, which is going to be a new interesting consumable. Now the consumables is always the same, but it comes on a auto. Now for commander skills, it's going to be the next. Here are my commander skills so far that I truly recommended. As a support aircraft carrier, like on Midway, is going to be the main aircraft carrier. The first 10 skill point is always this. Now, in the rest of the commander skill points are going to be my recommendation. You see, last gasp, proximity fuse, the repair specialist is going to be needed for the additional repair consumable charges. Next, aircraft armor is going to be recommended for this skill. Last but not least is search and destroy. Is all we wanted to do for support aircraft carriers, but rather than to do this further. So keep in mind on caution. This combat air patrol. Use it for the ones to use the scout, as well as to protect ships can deploy for them. Okay, so that's my concludes about the showcasing for the top tier ships, defense and Essex. But if I already have my gameplay about defense and Essex in the previous video for just link down in the description below. You wanted to see my gameplay for that. So thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe and click the bell on the notification icon. So I will going to make my next content on World of Warships right now to do so. Okay, so thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you see you in my next video. Peace out guys. We look forward to take on update 30.2.